A swift kick in the ass, episode 64.
All big changes start with a swift kick in the ass. Join the journey of lifelong friends, John Curren and Tom Stewart, as they make conventional thought bend over and take a boot to the keister. Warning, listeners may notice a force equal to or greater than needed to get your ass moving. A swift kick in the ass, living life on your terms.
Welcome, I'm Tom Stewart, and I'm joined with my lifelong childhood friend, John Curren, and today we discussed how to live like a rock star, living life on your own terms. Welcome to the show, John. Good to see you.
Thanks, Tom. It's good to see you as well. I'm just going to first apologize to some of our listeners or give a warning because I'm very passionate about this subject and a few cuss words might slip out. I'm going to try my best not to, but like I said, I'm passionate about this. And what is really upsetting to me is how living life on your own terms or living life on your terms or however you want to phrase that is marketed. We always see pictures of, the couple on the beach and the guy has a laptop and they're working from the beach and they talk about earning 6 digits and making your own schedule. And they just have it wrong. I think it's a bunch of bull is what I think it is. It's intended to sell product and make money off of people's hopes and desires to better their life. And we started this podcast to kick some ass, to help you, our listener, wake up and start really getting traction with creating positive change in your life. And I really feel that this advertising approach or marketing approach, it gets it totally wrong, and it pisses me off.
Because it's not about living life on your own terms to make money. It's not about money, man. It's about freedom. It's about doing what you find responsible for yourself and being a better person, right, John? Not, I got $1 million in the bank, so now I'm living life on my own terms. That's not the goal.
Yeah, I agree. Money is certainly an aspect of living life on your terms, but only in that money is a necessity for life. In these days, we use money to help us survive, to purchase food, shelter, clothing, all the basic necessities of life. Money is a necessary tool that we have, but that is where I think the marketers go wrong. Is it's not the money. The money's not the goal, but how you handle your money is certainly part of living life on your own terms. Using money as a tool to help support your own agenda. Really, I think.
Well, we talk a lot about getting out of debt because in that aspect, money can be the enemy because you're being weighed down by something that you owe to someone. So you're not living life on your own terms there because you're subject to their terms. I mean, yeah, you could go bankrupt, but that's hurting yourself. We're trying to build yourself up and get out of debt smartly, like John did when he had $90,000 in debt. He made a plan, got on board with his wife, and he worked a plan.
Well, honestly, Tom, we paid off over $90,000 in debt in 2.5 years. And during that time, I had my position eliminated as well. So, there were some that was part of that story. But I was literally several $100,000 in debt, and we've been working towards that. And now we had planned 5-year financial plan. We're now at year 10 or almost year 10, and we're just months away from reaching that goal.
So I guess you should not have bought that Ferrari, right?
Had nothing to do with buying a Ferrari or even doing anything extravagant. I mean, I didn't get to go to Hawaii or travel around Europe or buy an expensive RV, Tom, and travel around the country, and live without supporting myself. We were just we're making improvements to the house. We visited family. We lived beyond our means without really knowing that we are living beyond our means.
Well, that can build up so quickly. I remember when I was first married, and it was just me and my wife. She was pregnant with my daughter, but we would go to like around Christmas time, we'd go to Walmart or Target. I think it was Target, and we're like, we're going to buy our first Christmas tree. Okay. So we buy the Christmas tree and we go, oh, we want the cutest, by that time our daughter's going to be born. Let's, have some nice ornaments. So they had like all these Looney Tune ornaments. So we were like, let's do a Looney Tune theme. So we buy all these ornaments and they're like $25 a piece or whatever. It all adds up. And that's kind of stuff for just living, and you're young and you're not really thinking about, oh, that's just a Christmas tree, we'll use it forever, it's a good investment. We bought an artificial one, of course. But those things add up and you don't really realize it, and those are the kind of things that throw you in debt. It's like I said, it's not really buying expensive items. It's not about buying a Ferrari and all of a sudden, yeah, if you could do that, maybe it'd be insane. But it's all the stuff of life that just catches up with you and that you have to manage. And by living life on your own terms, you learn how to manage yourself, from everything from your emotions to your bank account.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, Tom. I think that oftentimes we make choices, and of course, like you, using your story as an example, you go into a store, you want something, and you don't really factor in the true cost of that purchase and how that affects your life, especially if you don't have the cash and you're putting that on a credit card. Oh, you have plenty of your room on your credit card, so how can you're not broke. But what you don't realize is the freedom that takes away from you, and that um, when you owe someone money, you're actually working to pay them back. You're a slave to the debtor until you pay them back. They're just taking the fruits of your labor, and you're giving it to them. And a lot of people don't consider that into their decision. So yes, you make a choice. You want this, you want that, and I'm there used to be a saying in my family. It said, you can't put a price on a good time. And so when I was younger, I took a lot of trips. I drove out to Colorado. I stayed there for several months. I wasn't working, but I was living off my credit cards, and I kind of tallied up a huge bill, in doing that. Um, and
And your family kind of embodied that. And I remember that because, as we talked about last episode, I would always run into your dad at, in Irish festivals and bars and stuff like that. And he was always around town. I would like a young person, he'd be out and about with your mom and, living the time, having a time of their lives. They didn't, sit inside and, just be like, oh, what's on the TV tonight, dear? They went out and lived.
right. And what that's very true. But what we don't mention is all the many years that my parents worked together side by side in a mom and pop printing business. And when I was growing up, my dad wasn't spending time with me, throwing the ball around. He was working. They had rental properties, so they were taking care of the properties. They were working on building um, wealth, really, and that took them away from time with me. And maybe that's why I feel so much like that's why I feel like it's so important to spend time with your kids, because my dad, you know, we had trips. We went out on a boat. We went fishing and things, but it was always on his terms. Things that he wanted to do wasn't necessarily because I wanted to do it. And I was thankful for those times. But we didn't go to Disney World very often. We didn't do a lot of fun kid type of things. Had a good life, had a good life, and my parents definitely provided for me. But was it perfect? No. And that's where I think we can do better. What's so funny is that my dad later on in life when I tried to use the argument against him, to say, yeah, of course, I ran up my credit cards on this trip out to Colorado, but like you said, Dad, you can't put a price on a good time. His answer was, I found out you can.
Well, there was, I mean, to your dad's credit, he would take us along because I remember going to your rental properties and hanging out. I remember going to the print shop, and I remember when your dog had puppies and it was you had like a little backyard
Yep.
on your print shop, and I remember being there with the dog and the puppies, and and then when they moved across the street, I remember being there. So yeah, I mean, obviously our parents they came from a different generation. And just like my parents, I remember my dad owned a bar and, remember us going there and he would let
Remember
us
that?
get Sprites and Slim Jims and
Oh yeah.
play some pool and, shuffleboard before like the bar really opened up. And then we were actually in there when, when the old timers would come in. And, so nowadays, I guess that wouldn't have been legal, but somehow we pulled it off. We'd be playing pinball in the bar when we were like 9 years old.
Yeah, that was definitely a different time. And that is, I always think of my dad as living on his own terms, and he did. But was it, it wasn't all play. There was a lot of work involved, and in addition to the work, there was a strategy or a lot of thought that he put in to how he spent his time and what he spent his money on. A lot of the a lot of the fun activities that we had when I was a kid, um, really didn't cost all that much money. We weren't going to, theme parks. We weren't, um, going out to the mall and buying clothes and stuff like that. We were, doing outdoor activities, going out with friends on boats, going fishing, going lobstering, going scuba diving. Uh, Not necessarily, it's kind of a different take. It didn't take a lot of money to do that, but you can certainly put a price on a good time.
Well, John, you're also talking about in the beginning of how there's people out there who feign working, living life on your own terms with the laptop on the beach and the hammock and so forth. But the other thing I also see is people sometimes where I go to a lot of black tie events, with my wife. Sometimes you see people feigning charity and humility, so they're working for the applause and not the cause. And I think that's something that, if you live life on your own terms, you're authentic and you don't fall in and do things just because you get a tax break. You do it because you believe in it and it's something that's important to you and you want to make a difference. And I think in order to make a difference, you have to live life on your own terms, to draw a line in the sand and say, this is what I believe in. This is what I want to do with my life. And this is how I want to help.
Yeah, and to add on to what you just said, Tom, it's not about the recognition, because if you live life on your own terms, you really don't care what other people have to say. In fact, that's exactly how I knew I was, going to marry my wife. How I knew that I loved her is because I found that I wasn't asking other people's opinion of her. I had my own opinion. There was nothing anybody could do or say that would change that. I loved her, and I wanted to marry her and spend the rest of my life with her. Uh, didn't know what I was getting myself into, just like every married guy. But but I wouldn't change it for the world. And I think that is part of these terms. Now, we talked about, how marketers display living life on your own terms, the beach and the tropical scenes and the cash and the expensive cars. And I saw a really funny quote. It's not funny, it's a foolish quote that I want to share with you. And this is just not words to live by. This is something that I think run contradicts what Tom and I talk about on our podcast. And the quote reads, "If you wanna live life on your own terms, you gotta be willing to crash and burn." And I think that's complete bull. Uh, you don't. Your life. no matter where you no matter your walk of life, no matter your situation, whether you're doing well or poorly, um, there are aspects of your life that you love and want to keep. Crashing and burning means throwing away your entire life and starting new. And I'm sorry to say, but that just doesn't happen. That's not realistic, to say that you're going to throw away every aspect of your life, throw away your old life and get a new life. Who really wants to do that? It's complete bull. Um, I believe that you can work uh, for a full time job. You don't have to be an entrepreneur to live life on your own terms. I'm doing it myself. Tom's doing it. It's a mindset that you have, and following your own dreams. But you can follow your own dreams and still be employed by someone else. In fact, in some ways, it's preferable because of all the different benefits and the money and the lack of responsibility that you have, which is so much different than when you're an entrepreneur and you're up late at night doing the job because there is no one else uh, on that team. It's a team of one generally. So uh, entrepreneurs, they take a lot more risk. I think um, trying to live life on their own terms, and sometimes they're really not creating a life of their own terms. They're creating a job for themselves. So you know, working for yourself isn't all what it's cut out to be. It can sometimes take you away from the things that you love and the terms that you really want to control.
Yeah, as you mentioned with your father before, that's what we saw. Your dad was an entrepreneur. My dad was an entrepreneur too. And they would sometimes dive too much into their business and be working on it all the time. It's that's sometimes that's if you want to go down the entrepreneurial route, that's what you have to be willing to sacrifice, and because you're there, you have to put the time in your business. It's nice to say, yeah, I'm sitting back and working on my business and I have all these outsourcers doing everything. But in the beginning, it's going to be you. It's going to be you in there putting in hours because you're not going to have the resources to have people outsource. And if you want quality, sometimes you do have to do it yourself before you can delegate. And once you can do it yourself and get your business up and running, then you can work on your business rather than working in your business. But that takes time, man.
Yeah, and it's also very risky as well. Um, you are shouldering 100% of the risk when you own your own business, whether it succeeds or it fails. You're going to either pay the price or benefit from it. So that is risky. Um, having a job where you have good pay and benefits and holidays and so forth is a lot less risky. And it doesn't mean that you have to crash and burn. It also doesn't mean that you have to give up your passions. This podcast is a passion of Tom's and my own passion as well. It enables us to really be creative and have a creative outlet. We do this not for the money, but because we love it so much.
And it helps us. I mean, this is we fight the same battles as everyone else, man. We wake up in the morning and sometimes be like, oh, I don't want to do this, or I have to go to the gym, or whatever it is that's weighing you down. Maybe you have you know, addictions or something that's blocking you in life. And I see that in my own family. I've seen that what addiction and alcoholism. I grew up with an alcoholic father, and I've had family and brothers that are the same way. And I see what damage it does. And so for me to go out and say, hey, try to better yourself in whatever position you're in, believe in yourself that you can make a change. You can change what it is, it comes from the inside, and we like to try to give inspiring stories. We've had a few guests on here that have shared their addiction issues, like my friend David, who was homeless on the street and how he fought to get out. In fact, when he met his wife didn't even know he's homeless. She just kept on wondering why they kept on going on dates in the park. But, so yeah, it's definitely a passion of ours and something that you can work on the side. John's like said, don't give up your dreams. You can still have a day job and do your passion on the side until you can build up enough. Because that's what I don't like is I see a lot of shows that make it sound like, oh, it's you just jump off with both feet and you're going to be racking in the dough. But it takes work. It takes years. Most of the people that are successful have been doing this for years before they actually find some success.
Yeah, that's a great point, Tom. Burning your bridges. I can't afford to burn my bridges. I have a family that counts on me. I have a mortgage to pay, and um, I have people that look up to me and need me. I love Timothy Ferris. Wait, that didn't come out right. I
Really?
love
This is something I didn't know about, man. Am I invited to the wedding?
I love his work. I love his work. I think he is single. I don't know, but I think he must be because when you read the 4 Hour Work Week, which I think was an excellent book. Um,
Well, that was also written years ago. I mean, that was his first venture. That's what made a name for himself. And he worked, he's a smart guy. He worked in order to get that book published. He made sure he went and networked with the right people. He snuck into events and, dropped names. And I mean, he worked it.
Yeah. So in the 4 Hour Work Week, Timothy Ferris mentions packing up all of his stuff, putting it all into storage, sub leasing his apartment, or actually maybe just giving it up, and then moving to Buenos Aires for 6 months. He wanted to learn how to tango or salsa or some type of dance. And what I thought was great about that is he put a price tag on his dream. This is something he wanted to do, and he did the legwork. He did research to find out exactly what it would cost to fulfill that dream. And what he found is that there is a cost or a price tag associated with most dreams. He could figure out just with the beauty of the internet, looking through and saying, okay, I can find an apartment in Buenos Aires. It's going to cost me this much per month. You can write all down the cost. Food is going to cost me this much. Living expense is going to cost me this much. Tango lessons are going to be this much. You can you could save up you can put a price tag on that and then save up enough money and do it and live your dream. And that I think is is great. It's very specific and it's goal oriented. I like that. What I don't like and what I did not relate to is that even though it sounds great to just pick up and leave for 6 months, um, I have family. I have responsibilities. My world is just bigger than my own selfish wants and desires. I'm not going to pull my kids out of school uh, and take them away from their friends and take my wife away from her family uh, because I have this desire to go to Buenos Aires. I have to put those type of things on the back burner right now. It's just not time. The time is not right for me to do something like that.
Well, you have to prioritize your life. I mean, you realize you're allowed to choose your own path and you can basically do whatever you want, but it has consequences. So you prioritize in order to make a life on your own terms, right?
Right. And that goes back to what we said earlier about the true cost of what you're trying to accomplish. You might go into a store and buy some Woodstock or Princess Pony or something ornaments for your Christmas tree without really, without great
It was Looney
consequence.
Tunes, man.
Okay, Looney
Get it
Tunes
straight.
or
Bugs
super.
Bunny.
I thought it'd be superheroes, but you can do that, and it seems like there's very little consequence. But those little things add up over time, especially if you're putting it on a credit card. You're not paying for it in cash. You're continuing the cost of that item because there's interest associated with the money that you use to buy that material thing. Um, and that does take you away from your dreams because you're choosing to pay the bank, the credit card company interest rather than holding back on that desire, waiting until you have the cash to do it, pay for it yourself, and it eliminates your opportunity. If there's an opportunity cost, you're not able to spend that money on other things because you're sending it to the credit card company. A lot of people don't stop and take the time to think about that opportunity cost. But
Now, the one thing I have to say is I got my money's worth out of that tree. I kept it until, like on regular Christmas trees, the needles start to fall off. Well, that happens on artificial trees too. And by
right,
the time I got rid of that thing, it looked like the Charlie Brown Christmas tree. It still had we had the angel on top was Tweety Bird, and she finally fell off and cracked her head. But I do have a lot of the ornaments still.
sounds like a nursery rhyme. But by then, hopefully, if you did put it on a credit card, you had that paid off. But how about things that you buy, you use, and then you throw away, but you still owe the credit card for that purchase? I bet you any
Like
of
a
our
bag of Doritos.
Yeah, I mean, I'll bet you most of our listeners. I know I'm in this group that when I look back on what how I uh, racked up, $90,000 worth of credit card debt, I can't really tell you all that much in specific detail of what I spent money on. I mean, it just easy come, easy go. You don't think about it.
Well, I just took my kids to Universal Studios, and it was just me and my daughter and my son, and we went up. And what vacations you can drop a lot of money, and I didn't want to make it a very expensive thing. I just wanted to make it a little excursion that they would always remember. So we tried to do it smart because I know from experience in the past, if you start eating in the parks, every time you buy a drink, it's like, $4, and you go out for lunch and you're paying like, $60 for you and two kids. So I made, what we did is we went to Publix, we packed some peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and maybe ate one meal there, or I bought them some kind of snack. And we went at a time where, we ate breakfast at the hotel. They had a continental breakfast. And we also went over to our local grocery store and we bought some food and made sure that we had snacks and brought some water bottles. And that way it made it affordable. I didn't have to feel like, oh man, when I got home, like, man, I just dropped a ton of dough on all these things that because it adds up. It's like when you go to the movie theater and it doesn't cost a lot to get into the movie, but if you want to buy a soda and some popcorn and some candy, man, you're looking at almost more than what you paid to get into the movie for buying those things. And we're so conditioned to have that when we go to a movie that we got to have some popcorn. We got to have a drink, buy the kids some candy. It really adds up, and it makes it double of what it would cost. And those are the kind of things that you put on credit. You don't think about it, and they add up week after week, day after day.
I agree. And I like to bring us back on point. And I think this is a great uh, segue to that. Is that we talk about advertising and what living on your own terms is not. It's not just the life on the beach. It's not the money. Um, but what I think the marketers fail to tell you is that we all live life on our own terms. The terms are the conditions and the situations in our own life that have meaning, that impact our life. That's what the terms are, and we have control over those a large number of those terms. Now, granted, I call them birthright terms. These are terms that were handed down to us through birth, like genetics, the color of your hair, whether or not you have hair, your body.
Very funny, John.
Sorry, sorry. Your body type, um, certain medical conditions and so forth are all have a genetic aspect to them. There's not much you can do but live with those terms. Now you can try to manage them um, to some degree. Some of those things you have some degree of choice in, but oftentimes they're beyond your control. And we spend a lot of time thinking about these terms that are outside of our control. It's wasted time. You can't do anything about it. don't don't spend the energy on it. Spend time on the terms that you have created for yourself and that you're unhappy with, and you want to change them. You want to renegotiate them. uh, we all have the tools that we need. We're born with these tools to that allow us to live life on our own terms. Um, one of these tools are our emotions. Now, if we are always happy, you will never have a desire to change because we're happy. So why would you want to change? If you're unhappy for some reason, um, that is your mind's way of telling you that something needs to change, and only you really know what you're unhappy about. Uh, that is what you should focus on changing. And in fact, it's that red flag, that emotion, that negative feeling that you're feeling for whatever reason it is your mind's way of telling you what you need to change. And it's okay if you feel like crap. If you're in a shitty situation, sorry, uh, if you're in a bad situation, you're going to feel bad. That is normal. It's natural. If you didn't feel bad about it, that would be a big problem in my book because you're masking a bad situation, and maybe you're just in denial, or maybe you're on some heavy medication um, that that just numbs you to that emotion. It's not going to change your situation at all if by denying or masking that emotion. Um, talk We could talk about this maybe a little bit later, but what I like to do is when I'm feeling down about some situation that I'm in, I try to channel that negative emotion into positive action. So if I'm upset because we ran up the electric bill, um, then I focus on ways to change that, to maybe decrease the electric bill or take some type of action, which is going to, reduce my the way I feel about it.
I had a friend that he was like obsessed with his electric bill, and he wanted to see it, he gamified it where he wanted to see how low he could get it to go. And to the point where every day he left the house, he made sure everything was unplugged. Because I don't know if you know, but if you have your TV set plugged in, your computer, whatever it might be, even if they're not on, there's something called trickle charge, and they still pull electricity, and it'll still add up on your electric bill. And over time, all that stuff adds up. So he would go unplug everything. He would, like limit like when he had the air conditioning on, and maybe use a fan for a little while to circulate the air rather than AC. And he got it down. Granted, he lived by himself, but I remember one time he goes, "Oh, I got my electric bill down $15 this month." I was like, $15, man. Me just like walking inside the house is probably like $15, but just something to think about. You can
You're just
gamify
trying to
stuff.
make me cuss, aren't you? Think about our electric bill, and with my three kids, they're always leaving the light on. And I think that's an aspect of the terms of our lives that we don't really look at. Is the terms really boil down to control, choice, and external forces are part of at the direction or where the force is coming from. Uh, Sound like I'm talking about Star Wars, but I'm not talking about the Star Wars force. I'm talking about forces in our lives that impact the way we live, that impact the conditions or situations that we're in. My children are one of my terms, and I try to get them to turn the lights off, and it seems like a losing battle.
Good luck.
Yeah,
My daughter's 20 years old, and I'll still walk upstairs, and she's been downstairs, hanging out on the couch, looking at her phone. And for like the last, 3 hours, her light, her closet light, her TV, everything's on, because they don't, what it is. Part of that with kids is they've never had to pay for it. When you live on your own and you have to pay an electric bill, you realize how much energy you're burning.
yeah, and food cost I mean, my daughter last night, she poured herself a big bowl full of applesauce. Not a big, I mean, like half the jar in one bowl. And both my wife and I and are like, that's too much applesauce. You know, put some of it back.
Hopefully, she didn't put it back after she was like
No,
dipping
no,
in,
no.
and it's
She
like
tried to. She tried to, but we put the kibosh on that.
like double dipping, you know.
But the thing is that she'll take a few spoonfuls of it, and then she'll want to throw away the rest. We're like, no, you're going to eat that damn applesauce. You poured it out, and you're absolutely right. It's because they have not attached a cost. They have not had to pay the price for that applesauce. And peanut butter, geez, I feel like, peanut butter used to be like the poor people's food, but you have to be damn rich to eat peanut butter these days. The price of peanuts have gone up so much that
But
it's not.
we were
It's
guilty of it when we were
oh
kids,
yeah,
John. I mean, think of how many times we would just turn on the hose and leave it running, or make, mud pies and, squirt it at people running down the street and on their bicycles. And,
or
and you,
Brian
you
Lard.
think when you're a kid, you're just like, oh, it's water's free. You don't realize that, no, not really. You have to pay for that. And if you just leave the damn hose running in the front yard and don't turn it off. Yeah.
Yes. So, you know, the next tool that we have is money, but it's not just having money or the lack of money. It's really how you deal with money and how you handle your finances. Money is a part of our life. We use it to buy things that we need, as well as the things that we want. So that is a tool that most of us have. If you're employed, um, you have some type of cash flow coming in. So that's a tool that you can manage to live a life more of your own terms.
And remember, even the Bible says the borrower is a servant to the lender.
Yes. Um, the next tool is our own brain and our ability to make decisions. Choices impact control. So if you make choices, they will either increase your control over your own life or they will decrease it. The choice to use a credit card, that decreases your overall control over life because now you're spending your money, the money that you make and you earn and the fruits of your labor are now going to the credit card company to pay that bill. That limits your choices. Um, Accepting responsibility and accountability. I know, Tom, you like that because you're the king of accountability. Oftentimes we like to blame others. I remember back in my corporate days, like early on, I felt really stuck in my position. And what I saw is that every time I tried to move up the chain, uh, those positions would be handed out not necessarily to the most qualified, but to the best connected. Um, they they weren't like me who tried to do their best job. They were yes men and yes women. I didn't and I felt like the corporate structure was holding me back. Um, and what I realized is that they weren't trying to hold me back. There were good reasons why those people were selected. Um, it was up to me to carve a path out of stone if that's where I wanted to do. It's not going to be easy, but it was up to me. In fact, I just I watched The Shawshank Redemption. I
Good
don't know if
movie.
you've ever
Yeah,
seen
yeah,
that.
it's a great movie.
If you're feeling down about your situation, watch The Shawshank Redemption, even if you haven't, especially if you haven't seen it before. But if you haven't seen it in a long time, watch it again because it's a great story, and it literally talks about chipping away at the stone to find to find your dreams. Uh, you know, it it's a great story.
Well, we have to take responsibility for your own happiness too. That's part of accountability. Happiness is an inside job. You don't assign anyone else that much power over your life. And before you can even really love, you should love yourself. You should be able to have some self-love in order to be able to love others. And that's part of taking responsibility.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think just like anything, of course, there are extremes, which can be very bad. But I don't see anything wrong with being selfish. We need a bit of selfishness in our life. Um, you need to respect your own needs and own desires. Now, granted, you can put people before you. Like I put my children before me, but I also put myself first in some ways too, and I get a lot of what I want out of life. Just because you're putting, I guess the takeaway from this is that don't always put everyone before you. Sometimes it's okay to be the first in line.
Well, think about this. If you're going down in an airplane, right? This is one of the rules that, you'll learn when you fly a lot, or, when I was in the Air Force. The first thing is to take care of yourself. No matter who you're with, you grab the oxygen mask, put it on your face so you can be awake and survive, so you can protect your child and put it on them. Because if you try to put it on your kid first and then you pass out and you don't get it on right, you're both done. But if you
Right.
put it on yourself and then have time to be conscious and be able to put it on your kid, then you both survive.
Yeah, they always say too, help yourself so that you can help othh.
Right.
But
Well, I'd survive until the plane crash and you all die anyways. But
the ambulance is going to get there first to the crash site, or never mind. The airplane's going to make it to the crash site first before the ambulance.
makes sense. I was kind of wondering where you're
Yeah,
going with
yeah,
that.
I
Unless there
should.
was a lawyer on board and he was given a heads up.
I thinking about putting yourself first. I think back about my oldest daughter, who's now 13, and she'll be starting high school next year. it, when we used to take her on the playground, she was so passive that she would be standing in line to go, to go up the slide, to climb up the ladder and go down the slide. She would literally, when other kids came up behind her, she would put herself in the back of the line. And I was like, "What are you doing?" She
Yeah.
would. I mean, this would happen a time and time and time again.
My son Hunter was the same exact way.
And that just becomes ridiculous. It's like, take your damn turn on the slide. You've
Be
been letting
aggressive.
everyone else, yeah, you've been letting everyone else go. It's time to have some fun, and you hold your place in line. And I think that a lot of people allow others to step on you or bully you or take advantage of you if you're too nice. Uh, there comes a point, to where you have to take a stand. And that's not being mean. That's just having respect for yourself and being able to stand up for yourself.
Speak softly and carry a big stick, right?
Yes. Um, and the last tool that I want to talk about too is creativity. Um, like your friend Tom, who made a game of lowering his electric bill. He was trying to, change that term of his life, which was driving him nuts. And it's great. I did the same thing when my wife and I were first starting our financial plan. Uh, when you don't have any money to buy things, it really hurts because we always need something in our life, or we always think that there are certain things in our life that will make life better for us. In my situation, it was our lumpy mattress. This thing was like 15 years old. It was giving my wife and I back problems. Couldn't sleep at night. It was sunk down in the middle and it wasn't supportive. And we needed a new bed. It was way past its prime. Um, and, that was just one thing that I thought that we needed. But I had a whole list of things. And what I did is I gamified it. I wrote down a price as far as how much money I thought I would need to buy that product. And then I started doing research on it. And what I found is that in all cases, I overestimated what it would cost for me to buy that by like half. I mean, by two times. I overestimated it. And I made a game to see how cheap I could get something so I could meet my needs but keep the expenses low. And it, you know, it worked great, and it helped us through that very difficult time. It's not always about throwing money at a problem. It's easy to throw money at a problem. It's not so easy to actually think about your situation and try to provide the best outcome possible for yourself. That, in at its core, is living life on its own term, because life is not always going to be happy. It's not always going to be, you know, lollipops and rainbows. It's going to be full of good times and bad times. And if we can prepare ourselves during the good times and expect bad times, when those bad times hit, you're going to be in a much better position, and you're going to be much better able to weather the storm. Um,
Can
that's
I
one.
hit on one that I think you've overlooked?
Go
And
ahead.
that's questioning your culture. Stop following the herd. Stop following like every popular thing that is out there. You don't need to be part of. It's not going to make a difference. One of the things I gave up in my life was watching the news. I'll watch it every once in a while just to if something's really really important, but for daily consumption, I got it out of my life because I didn't need to hear all these negative stories. My wife was asking me last night, she's like, oh, did you hear about the Stanton rape? And when I was like, no, just tell me about it. I didn't have to waste my time to learn about something that I have no influence on, and it's not going to help me at all. Probably just going to put some negative connotation in my mind, and spend so much time. I spend time trying to improve myself or spend time with my kids. I don't sit there consuming popular affairs. I don't care who, one of the Kardashians is with. I don't care. It doesn't matter. My kids always make fun of me because a couple of years ago, I didn't know who Lady Gaga was, right? And they're like, "You don't know who Lady Gaga?" I was like, "No, I don't care." It's kind of a running joke that oh, Dad's just not in touch. But I worked in that field. I worked in radio for so long that I knew all the artists. I've met the artists, and they're not important to me. And so it doesn't matter. And and same thing, like if football season comes up and everyone's, oh, the Super Bowl, you got to get in it. Yeah, it's okay to watch, but I don't get like a fervor where I'm painting my face and it's like, I put so much investment in someone else to do something. It's right now we have the Copa is on for soccer, right? And people go nuts. I mean, to the point where people. There was one point where a couple of years ago, I think it was, where one of the soccer players accidentally kicked his own goal. He actually scored on his own team by accident, and someone murdered the guy, man. I don't know if it was the mafia, had some money on the bets, or some disgruntled person, but they took it so personally because they got wrapped up in that herd mentality. And that's one of the things. If you live life in your own terms, you just at least question. I'm not saying it's bad to like soccer or like football, but just question, why you're there. Is it really because you like a game, or you're just jumping on like I'm not trying to pick on my wife, but the Miami Heat was in the playoffs, and she said, "Oh, she's become a bandwagoner. She got sucked up in the fervor. She didn't really care less of about the players, but she liked the going to the bar and seeing the games with her friends. So you get wrapped up in that bandwagon effect, and you jump on, and yeah, it happens, but just question it when it does.
Yeah, I think I would consider that to be a false term of our life. Is that, if you think about a term, the terms of our lives are things or concepts or beliefs that impact our life in some way, that make a difference. And what you're talking about is a false term, because we're letting it impact our life, but we really have no influence. I mean, you have no influence over that whatsoever, and it's almost accepted voluntarily. It.
Well, it's like the people that you've seen the Donald Trump rallies where there's certain violence breaks out. And it's like, look, your one chance to impact that is your vote. You actually can affect the outcome there. But by going to someone's rally and starting a riot or starting a fight is not going to make a difference. It's not going to change anything.
Yeah, that's the reason why I try to never argue opinion, because You have your opinion, I have my opinion. Maybe maybe we see things the same way, or maybe we don't. But in the end, I can't change your opinion. You have to change that on your own. I and so many people, especially where politics is involved, they try to change your opinion, your thoughts and beliefs about something. And more cases than not, you're arguing is just going. I mean, if you win, it's because the other person got tired and just didn't want to hear you anymore, so they conceded. Because they realized, you know what, it's not that important. You really didn't change their mind at all.
No.
You just wasted your breath. You focused your energy and spent energy on nothing, really. Focus that focus your energy and on things that you can things you can change. But that's excellent. And Tommy, I had thought about the false terms, about culture and how that impacts us. And I love the Florida Gators. That's where I went to school, and I know that is part of how I identify myself, because I went to school there. They're my school team, and I'm a diehard fan. I love them whether they win or they lose. I'm going to be a Gator. That's just how I identify with that's how I see myself. But you know, does it ruin my night when they lose? No, not really, because I didn't actually win that game. I wasn't playing in that game. They're my team, but they're gonna be my team whether I win or they lose. So it doesn't really affect me at that level. I'm not gonna get too upset. But I know a lot of people who follow sports who are just miserable if their team loses. And boy, you don't want to be around them.
And that's the point that I was trying to make. I'm not trying to say it's bad to watch sports. I mean, sports are healthy. It's a healthy outlet, but I'm saying
Yeah.
when you take it like that so personally, I know people the same way, that they pout, they get upset, they might even cry because their team lost. And it's not really it doesn't make a difference. There's no difference you can do. Shouting at your TV is not going to make a difference. That's just, have fun,
Yeah.
but don't let it ruin your life like that.
Yeah. So I imagine it's probably time to start wrapping up this conversation. But I just want to leave our listeners with something concrete and practical that they can do that will help you live life more on your terms. And it's very simple. Have an agenda. Know what you want to accomplish and why you want to accomplish it. And then recognize too that you may get exactly what you ask for, but it may not be really what you want. So, think about that. So know what you want to accomplish and why. Know why you want to accomplish it, because if persistence is key to accomplishing most goals. If winners never quit and quitters never win. It's an old saying, and it's stuck because it's true. If you give up, you're never going to win. So when things get tough, you need to know why you're going down this road. And if you don't really know why, when things get tough, you're gonna bail on it. It doesn't matter what you're doing, because it got tough, and people tend to take the course of least resistance. So if you're challenging yourself with a very big challenge, you need to understand why you're doing it, and that's going to keep you on course, keep you motivated, because motivation is only going to take you so far.
In that vein, John, my tip would be remind yourself of what is important, and whether it's having a picture of your family up or whatever your goal may be. For myself, I have a painting that I found. It's actually just a framed picture, and it just has a picture of a bridge that's leading to the beach that looks very familiar. It looks very almost like the ones that we have here in Florida. So the beach for me is a very calming and inspirational place. So I have this, and on it says "Follow your path." And just, I have that over my kitchen table. And every time I see that, when I doubt myself or feel like I'm leading astray, I always see that. And I kind of like, yeah, I'm still doing my thing. Even if it's on the side, I'm still working towards it. I'm still following what's important to me. And those little reminders are sometimes good to have around. So, it could be a trinket, it could be a picture, it could be an image, it could be a certain song that triggers that inspiration in you to follow your own path and to live life on your own terms.
I think that's a perfect way to end it, Tom. I couldn't agree with you more. I encourage everyone to live life on their own terms, better understand what those terms are, and just keep on keeping.
Thanks for listening. I'm Tom Stewart. Make sure that you check out our website at swiftkickinass.com. There you can sign up for our free membership site. You just put in your email. You'll get access to all kinds of cool courses. Some new stuff will be coming on its way, and you'll always have access to that. It's an actual fully legit membership site with videos, books, and even John's simple spending plan to help you get out of debt so you can live life on your own terms. Peace.
Peace.